Both the Dark Lord Morgoth and Sauron manipulated and bred many races to their wicked cause. The dragons of Middle-earth were bred by Melkor in the First Age to serve as elite soldiers for his dark armies in the early wars of Beleriand and the West. Also known as the Northern Drakes, the dragons were of various shapes, colors, and sizes, some winged, others wingless, some able to breathe fire and smoke. Though they would go on to have lesser roles under Sauron, they would always serve the dark powers. The most well-known among them included Glaurung, father of dragons, and Calagon the Black, Skada the Worm, Smaug the Terrible, Gostir the Dreadglance, the Great Cold Drake, and the Great Fire Drake of Gondolin. When Melkor and Sauron left the grace of Ilúvatar, they were joined by many lesser Maiar who became corrupted, both by them and for reasons of their own. Many of these dark and powerful servants took the form of Balrogs in Middle-earth, also called the Valaraukar. These were enormous beasts of fire and terror which served in the First Age, and were responsible for killing legendary figures like Feanor, son of Finwë. After the destruction of Utumno, most of the Balrogs were killed, save for 7, who fled to the dungeons of Angband. Though they largely disappeared from the world as the ages went on, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm discovered a Balrog hiding under the Misty Mountains in the Third Age, and it drove the dwarves from their ancestral home, only to be killed later by Gandalf as the Fellowship of the Ring made their way through Moria. The most well-known of their kind was Gothmog, their captain in the First Age, and the Balrog of Moria. The wild men of Dunland, known as Dunlendings, were a culture of fearsome mountain tribes that lived in the lands of Rohan during the Second and Third Ages. The Eotheod, ancestors of the Rohirrim, drove them from their lands, and many fled north to the lands of Dunland and Bree. The descendants of these displaced hillmen would go on to serve Sauron and Saruman in the War of the Ring, to take their vengeance against their old Horse Lord enemies. In the Second Age, when the Numenorean kingdom was at its height, various colonies and settlements were founded by their people. In Umbar, far to the south of Gondor, a group that would come to be known as the Black Numenoreans began to worship the Dark Lord Sauron. After the destruction of Numenor, the men of Umbar continued to oppose the faithful and joined Sauron in the various wars of the Second and Third Ages. Some notable Black Numenoreans included the Mouth of Sauron, who attempted to negotiate with Aragorn in front of the Black Gate at the end of the War of the Ring, the Mouth of Dol Guldur, who served as a messenger for the Necromancer, and it is believed 3 of the 9 Nazgûl were also Black Numenoreans. The Easterlings were also called Men of Darkness, and they marched into the west from the great lands of Rhûn, east of Mordor. Often described as sallow-skinned and swarthy, they fought for the Dark Lords through the First, Second, and Third Ages. There are some who say were it not for the blue wizards sent into the east, the Easterlings would have vastly outnumbered the men of the west, and possibly overtaken them. The Wain Riders and Balkoth were subgroups formed out of the Easterlings and others, unified by their hatred of Gondor and determined to conquer the West. Some of the most well-known Easterlings included Khamûl, second in command of the Nazgûl, Bor the Faithful, and Ulfang, the Black Chieftain of the East. The Haradrim, also known as Southrons, were descendants of the Atani, known as Black Men, from the lands of Harad, directly to the south of Gondor. Though they were not originally part of Morgoth's dark armies, they were fierce enemies of Gondor and were convinced by Sauron to join his cause in the War of the Ring, marching north with great oliphants and armies. In the Fourth Age, most of the Haradrim negotiated peace with King Aragorn of Gondor, but some southern tribes would continue their wars, ever hostile to the men of the West. The Variags were men from the lands of Khand, great mounted warriors that brought their axemen and horse lords to fight alongside the Easterlings in the Third Age, and were part of the Wain Riders, waging war against Gondor.